Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we are back with another one. It is the Authority Project. I am Brian S. Arnold, your host, and I'm here with my new good friend, Diana Fryc. And she says that she's going to show you why having women in leadership will increase your bottom line. Is that right, Diana?
Well, I won't show you, but I'll tell you all about it. It's definitely the people who are buying your products are 70% or more women. And having women in leadership will be able to give you the inside scoop on how women make decisions when it comes to buying things for house and business.
Awesome. I'm all over this topic. So let's get right to it, everybody. In 3, 2, 1, let's go. Intro. Here we go.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, feast your eyes and tune your ears. It's that time again. We are live with another episode of The Authority Project. It's the video podcast streamed on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Periscope, where we talk to digital marketers, business coaches, and creators of all kinds on how they've built authority in their field and how you can mimic their success. Developing authority, building your audience, and attracting better clients to your own business. Now, without further ado, let's bring to the virtual stage your host, Brian S. Arnold.
All right, we are back with another one, folks. It's the Authority Project. I'm Brian S. Arnold, your host again. You are the project. We want to slap authority to your name so you can sell more of what you're great at. And we have Diana Fryc here. How are you doing today?
I'm doing so good, Brian. Thanks for having me today.
Awesome stuff. So let's get right into, well, not into the topic yet. We want to talk about you first, Diana.
Oh, all right.
Yes. Who are you, Diana? Who are you personally and then professionally?
Well, I'm hoping one day to really figure out who that is, who I am. But today I am. The few hats that I wear, I am a business owner. A brand development consultancy focusing on CPG, consumer packaged goods, specifically in food, beverage, and wellness brands. And my business partner and I have been doing this since 2006, and we work with some brands that you might know, like High Key Snacks, PepsiCo, Go-Go Squeeze, amongst some others. And that's my day job. My other job is a mother of teens. Help me send vodka. I'll tell you that. And I really am a kind of a community organizer as well. I really like to build my world around communities. And so I have lots of little communities in my world where sometimes it's just social and sometimes it's educational. But at the end of the day, looking to kind of just be happy by being in community. It sounds very Pollyanna-ish, but that's what I do. Outside of, I decided to go back to school to get my MBA. I don't know what I thought about. I started getting into math and it's killing me. It's killing me already.
So tell us about your daily routine. What does that look like for people who want to know?
Well, I have 2 daily routines. It depends on the day, but I am a fairly early riser. I like to get into the day before the rest of the household wakes up. I am a morning person. My family likes to sleep in, and I like to get up and get tasks out of the way. And sometimes that includes exercising, about half the time, some sort of exercising. So I will hop on the treadmill, go for a walk, what have you, fuss around the house, and then get up and start my work day. I start my work day the latest at 7:30, but anywhere between 6 and 7:30 in the morning. Do a lot of planning in the morning and a lot of tactical work. But because I'm in sales, most of my day consists of talking with people and building relationships. So my personal life and my business life share a lot of things in common. Because I also run the business, I do a fair bit of operations. And so, but I break up my week in a way. I don't do a day per se. So if I'm going to do operational work, there's a half a day out of every week that I spend strictly doing operational tasks. Every day I do sales. And then after the work day is over, which is typically 10 to 12-hour day, I will either go and exercise, make a meal, or get back to my homework. So that's kind of what my life looks like right now: work, homework, and kids.
Nice. Very, very nice. Okay, so let's dive into this topic now. Let's dive into this
Okay.
topic. Why is having women in leadership make the difference in increasing our bottom line for our companies? How does that work?
Well, it's really kind of a real simplified version of having diversity in general in leadership. If we take a look up at the makeup of the consumer just in the United States, like, let's just keep it simple. We're looking at the United States. The people that are buying products, if we're talking about consumer goods, which could be anything from insurance to soap or cars, we want to consider the fact that when we're looking at our audience, the people who are buying the products, most of all decisions in the entire household are either made by women or heavily influenced by women. So if you are if you're a married couple, or if you're a couple even at all, most men generally will consult with their wives on any kind of decisions, unless it's purely for their own sake. And even then they'll kind of go, well, what do you think of this fishing rod or these shorts or whatever? They'll usually ask. Women usually don't do that. They don't usually consult with their husband unless it's a major purchase, like a car or something like that. But if they're making day-to-day purchases for their family use, they don't typically consult with their spouse in that manner. And so when you take a look at just that habit in and of itself, it's somewhere between 75 and 80% of all buying decisions are either made by household buying decisions are made by or influenced by women. So to get the best understanding of what is happening in the marketplace and what drives buying decisions, it's really in a company's best interest to be able to understand the psychology from the natural standpoint, rather than simply relying on data and statistics, because data and statistics can only report what is being measured. And if you don't ask the right questions, you're not going to get answers that will naturally help you provide answers to those consumers. If you have women or the right level of diversity on your staff, whether it's by color or religion or age or disability or LGBTQ status, you can't naturally know what questions there is to ask all the time unless somebody directs you to understand them. So you either have to have a really great partner who is supporting you, partner out in the marketplace who's saying, you need to be asking these questions, or you need to have people on your team doing that. So that's one reason, is to have the psychology on your team, number one. Number two, women have a tendency to build communities and consensus in a different way than men generally do. This is not true all across the board. Men have much better leadership and decision-making skills. They can get kind of narrower and focused very, very quickly, which is sometimes really, really great. But when you're working with something that might be more complicated or more emotionally driven, women tend to manage those scenarios a little bit differently, and tend to manage them better is not quite the right word. So if you've got a mix of men and women on your leadership team, you're more likely to get to a consensus that's going to be in the best interest of your consumer and your business more quickly. Less speed bumps, less crashes. You're always going to have kind of these tests. You're always going to have things that are going to go sideways. But when you have two different or multiple different psychologies on your team going through the process, your ability to see the crashes before they come or recover from the crashes more quickly, your chances are better than if you are just, all the same gender or all the same anything, if that makes any sense.
Yes. So give us some specific stuff, because do you feel like women give a perspective that men can't see? What exactly are you saying that they can't see? Because I can see men like, what, it's taking so long to get women in these roles.
Yeah.
What is it that is blocking them from understanding that the importance of having women in these roles?
Yeah, well, why having women in the roles, what's blocking them
Yeah.
from having them in the roles? Part of it is fear, change, um, perhaps a perception that, if you have to change things, that there's something that you are not doing well enough, as a leader. And so, depending on what your family culture is like or your personal culture is like, some people don't do well having women be equal to them.
Yeah.
They see it as a threat to them. In other cases, the general nature, and we can say this about women and their inability to see certain things too, but in this very specific question, I think men have a way of seeing things, that it's not really it's not that you don't understand it. That's the way that men translate information and move forward with information is different than the way women do. And so I think there needs to be a little bit more judgment, a little bit more trust, and a little bit of willingness to be wrong and having failures as well, and just being okay with making errors. There's nothing wrong with bringing diversity into your leadership and having things go sideways and figuring things out, because quite frankly, that's actually where some of the biggest ahas come from, is
Mm.
from, ooh, that didn't go the way we expected it. Well, what did we learn? Oh, well, now we know how to do this better. Had no idea that that was going to be the special prize that came out of this train crash,
Now,
So
is there, so let me just go further with that. Is there any kind of like pushback from men saying like, we're doing well already, so why do
right.
we need why do
Or
we need a
why do we
woman
need to be
now?
better?
Right. Why do we need to have a woman coming in here since we're doing fine already as it is?
Well, there's an assumption there that by bringing women in there, that you will have parity or you will do worse.
Hmm.
So the goal is to have the audacity to think that it can be better, is
Yeah.
really what it is. It's really, and I think that the adoption rate, what we're seeing in the last few years specifically, was we're seeing more of a push by, I think, women, and I think we've got women and people of color and LGBT communities kind of working together now, rather than in their own silos, and
Yeah.
saying diversity is not a gay issue, diversity is not a women's issue, diversity is an everybody issue, and if we work together, then we can push for all of us equally and get into that role. And I think that we're seeing more of that, and we're seeing an acceptance. And quite frankly, I think millennials and Gen Z are, kicking our butts. They're making us pay attention, and they're showing us, because by nature
Yeah.
of their demographics, their cohort, the Gen X, or not the Gen X, the Gen Z cohort is the most diverse cohort of all of the consumer groups that we've seen, all the way up from the greatest generation. And you've got this group of people that are getting along just fine, thank you very much, and they're talking to us like, look, we are doing just fine down here, what's your problem? So I think
Right.
we've got the young guys
Yeah.
schooling us a little bit on how to get along and look what's possible when we do get along.
Do you see that there's is it an age issue, or is that what all it is just an age issue, like
Probably.
just tradition?
I
Why
think
does
so.
what? Yeah.
I think so. Every generation is more tolerant, and more tolerant of what's happening with themselves, and less tolerant with the previous generation, right? Gen X was fed up with the boomers. Millennials are fed up with everybody else. Gen Z is looking at everybody else, and millennials, the oldest millennials are in their 40s now. Like, they're no longer the fresh pups, and Gen Z is, like I said, taking us to school. And then we've got what some of us are calling Gen C, the COVID generation, the kids that are right behind them, that are going to kick all of our butts for not getting along, because they were the ones that were looking at what's been happening with COVID, how the people that were cared for and not cared for, and saying, see, in these communities where people cared for each other, the transmission rate dropped and there were less deaths, and over here, and they're less like each generation is just inherently less tolerant of the previous generation, and that's just age. That's just it. That's just age.
So you see it, coming along, like where women are coming together more now. It's like another wave of that happening when women come together. They're demanding more. They're actually creating their own brands and so forth. That saying that regardless of what you're going to do, I'm going to do my own thing.
Yes.
So how do we implement these things more into our or how do we get women to understand that they have that power now to actually do that and be leaders? Because I think people are still, there's still this thing about just waiting your turn, or don't rock the boat.
I know it.
And then maybe one day you'll be chosen. So how do we get past that kind of mentality?
I think it really is, what I'm seeing as being valuable are the women that are Gen X and older need to step up to the plate and provide the opportunities. Those of us that have kind of bushwhacked our way into leadership roles need to, instead of it being a badge, the bushwhacking being a badge, and I hope that that's translatable of people understanding, instead of it being a badge of how hard it was to get to where we got, like, let's clear the path. Let's just assume that our bushwhacking cleared the path, and we're going to make it easier. So inviting this younger generation, inviting other women, supporting other women when we see that they've got some sort of natural strength, inspiring them to move forward into that roles and being a support. Women are naturally super supportive as a community, but we're not as good at that in a professional environment. We're still competing with each other a little bit. Yeah. And I think if we can bring more of that interpersonal component into our world, into the professional world, and exemplify our behaviors that we demonstrate outside, whether it's in a religious community or in our neighborhood community or whatever, the ways that we behave there, if we can bring them into the professional environment and know that we don't have to compete like a guy anymore, and that we can provide a platform, I think that we'll continue to be able to bring others along with us. And I would say the other thing that I find, because I host a podcast myself and it's all women, is every single last woman said, I never saw myself in business and I had to work really, really hard. And the reason why I developed my podcast is I wanted to create a visibility platform to normalize women in leadership positions, that this is normal. You should expect to see a woman running R&D. You should expect to see a woman running, like I interviewed a vice president over at Frito-Lay. You should expect that might be a woman, that is not exclusively set aside for men or whatever, insert whatever you expect that person to be. So I think continued visibility, and I think an expectation to see women and an expectation to support women. I think men, whether you're a father or your sibling or an uncle or a neighbor, cheer those women on when they're taking on something big. And it might have to be overly done just so that they can hear it, because women are really good about going, yeah, I heard you, blah, blah, blah. Sometimes the cheerleading has to be a little bit louder than normal so that they can hear it. Does that make sense? Yeah, absolutely. And I think that when you just touched about visibility, being seen, because people, and we talk about this all the time. Like I just have never, like I said, I've never seen this happen. Yep. You see, I did earlier this week. They talked about these three reporters, the female reporters who, they called the baseball game for the first time ever. Three women called the baseball game. Yeah. It's just like, it's just incredible that it's taking so long for something like that to happen. So, what do you think about just the ability to be seen? How important that is? I think Being seen is not as important for women as it might be for men, and I could be wrong on this, so forgive me. I
Okay.
think women don't necessarily want the accolades and the visibility unless they feel like there's an inherent benefit to somebody else. So, for example, when I'm interviewing these women, they are not naturally comfortable being in front of the mic or in front of a camera, but they want to make sure that the next generation sees them, and so they're overcoming their own personal psychology in order to be the representation that they wish they would have seen when they were growing up. So whereas in men, I think men are comfortable with accolades, and in fact, I think that fuels them a little bit more than women. I think the accolades, like you're a great speaker, or you're a great leader, or you're a great, there's a little bit of swagger. There's an expectation that you're going to get that, and I think women sometimes are uncomfortable with that because that's still kind of a male personality trait. And if I'm prideful, then am I too male? And there's all sorts of weird psychology that women have in their head about what they should and shouldn't be, and you can see it played out in social media. On one end, you're revealing too much; on the other end, you go girl for showing all of it. And I think the female dynamic or the women dynamic right now is still a lot in flux, and we're all starting to just kind of get comfortable with what that freedom might look like. And so subsequently, we still have those boundary issues of women who are far more conservative in their approach to what being a woman is and far more liberal. I think men have had that freedom for much longer. And so there is a space for them to be whatever they want. And women are still getting comfortable there.
So just diving back right into the topic a little bit. Are men seeing the benefit or the profit margins from these things? Are they seeing the bottom line when they're implementing more women in these leadership roles? Are they seeing that? Is it just something that it's being said? Do they see it in the data, or do they see even more? So even beyond that, with the company and the culture changing?
Yeah, the places where you're going to see most people stand up and say, yes, we're seeing it in the bottom lines are the much larger organizations, typically the multinationals, the Boeings of the world, the Amazons of the world, that type of thing, where they see the shifts happen because the dynamics are impacting the company from a cultural standpoint. The smaller organizations can see that a little bit more, but it can be a little bit disruptive from a psychological standpoint. So say you're a small business and maybe you have 5 or 10 employees. Each incremental ad changes the culture of the business so much it can rock the boat pretty significantly. So if you're a business and you're predominantly male and you bring a woman on there, the amount of time it's going to take to see an ROI might be extended just simply because culturally everybody's got to figure out how to play with each other. It's a new game to play. When you're a larger organization, you're already embracing this change, and more women is kind of already embedded in their diversity, is already embedded in the mantra of the organization. You're going to see the ROI adjust much faster because the adoption is almost instantaneous. Like you're in an environment where new ideas are easily adapted, quickly adapted. It's all about how quickly can we adapt to a better way of thinking, a better way of operating. So it really depends on where your organization stands, but those larger organizations are absolutely seeing, you can see even the Fortune 100 companies, the sheer volume of women stepping into the C-suite is accelerating, and the bottom lines of those organizations are increasing pretty drastically. I think partly because from a morale standpoint, when half of your workforce is women, or nearly half of your workforce is women, and then suddenly you see somebody step into the C-suite or VP level and driving the organization, it's a morale booster. It makes you feel like you are being seen. Seeing somebody else makes you feel like you are being seen. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So I got a little cross-section kind of question here.
All right.
For somebody who's maybe they're looking for a position like this, and they see an organization, maybe they've gone through the research of that company and so forth, and they see that it's mostly male.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is there a way to broach that subject if they're trying
Mm.
to trying to get into that kind of a role? Is that something? Is there a subtle way to do that? Because or are we going into like that hard line of, well, we can't really, we don't want to really put you in there because you're a woman. We want you to come on as your merits. So is there still a way to really, I don't know, sneak that in a way to make that aware of that company?
That's so funny. I'm going to tell you a story about myself. This will give you an idea of what kind of personality you're dealing with here.
Okay.
Because I don't know that you can sneak it in. I think you have to be willing to be bold enough to bring it up and approach it. So there was back in 2003, just to kind of put some context in. So it's been a while and a lot has shifted since then, but I was interviewing for a position for a company that was a distributor of manufactured good. It was a B2B distributor, and predominantly male in sales and management, and support staff was predominantly female. There was no diversity. It was entirely Caucasian, just to throw that in, entirely Caucasian, probably 100 employees. And I remember when I came in for the interview and I walked through the office, they wanted me to see the office. We sat down, we went through the interview, and they asked me, well, what questions do you have? And I said, I noticed that all of your women are in support staff and your men are in sales and management. Is that how you guys build your architecture? Are you looking at changing up your diversity? And then it was like the face of this poor guy was not expecting that as a question. And he addressed that. And then I said, my next question is, I said, I don't see any other kind of diversity in here. How do you anticipate to market to the Seattle marketplace, which is pretty diverse compared to what this company buildup is? How do you expect to be able to work with those customers if we all look the same? And I, no joke, got the job. And then they started diversifying hires immediately after. So by the time I left, the staff was becoming quite diversified. But I asked that in my interview, just point blank, how are we going to take care of the needs of people if it's all white guys? There's no women making decisions, and the women are only purely support. Help me figure that out. I had to ask that. I just had to ask that. And I didn't say that it was a decision-making criteria for me. I just wanted to see how they would answer that, to kind of go, is this a company I want to work for? Because why take the job if it's not in alignment with my personal values? And that's really where those questions were coming from.
This is great stuff. This is amazing stuff. I don't have any other questions, to be honest. but I think the importance of having women in leadership is we're obviously not there yet. Let me ask you this, do you have any type of prediction of when it might be somewhat normal to really see women in roles and very diverse in any way?
You know what? I don't. If I did, I'd be super rich, right? If I could predict the future, I would say that we're going to see that parity happen in the urban environments much more sooner. That's just the way it works. I think the suburban and rural businesses and organizations are going to lag for a while. It's just kind of the way it is, this way of thinking. Technology is just makes it super easy for us. Like, we just hired 2 new staff people that are from out of state. We no longer are defined by the boundaries of our geographic area when it comes to at least the work that we do from a service provider. And I think it happens to be that in our business, it's all women, but one person is male. And as we talk about some of those decisions that we're making, it's really not about, do we need females or males? There is a leaning into making sure that everybody that we're making visible choices. But when we're looking at it, we're not just going, do they check all the boxes of, have they done this job? Do they know how to manage this project? But also, what are those soft skills? The soft skills are really the part that are super important for us to growing our organization, because if you don't know how to interact with your supervisor or a client or with any of your coworkers, you can't be a valuable employee. You can't be a valuable team member. And so that is a criteria that we take into consideration as well. Is this person going to be able to handle a tricky situation? And soft skills, I think, are going to be a big unit of measurement. But if we've got folks like yourself, like Brian, I can tell from you talking, you are very introspective and you are looking for information. I think if we can get more men to engage with people in general, like you do, being inquisitive and understanding the soft part of not just the can they draw a graph, but can they converse with me, I think we're going to move along much more faster than we have in the past. And I think we're seeing that. And I think we're going to continue to have hiccups. You know, growth is like this. It's never just a solid line. It's up and down, up and down. So I think if we can have more men curious about humans, then I think humans as they are, rather than just what do they add to the bottom line, then I think we'll be in a good spot.
Great. That's awesome. I have one last question. We're going to wrap this up.
Okay.
And it goes something like this. There are people who are watching right now. They'll be listening to you later. And they want to be like Diana. They want to do what you're doing, helping women get into leadership roles and helping with diversity in corporations and small business. Can you tell them, and I'll put you front and center,
okay,
more, how they can become an authority in this space?
You just got to do it. You've got to be comfortable not knowing everything. You got to be comfortable knowing that it's going to be bumpy. And I think you just need to be prepared for things to go sideways, and that it's part of the ride. And if you've got a passion for something, simply just do it. Just do it and you will figure it out. And I think women especially have a hard time thinking that they should just do it. They want to know with 100% sure. They want to make sure that when they apply for a job, they can check off every single box. And sometimes it's okay not checking off every single box. Sometimes it's a matter of I can check off 75% of it, but I can learn the rest, and I'm passionate about doing this. Now let's roll.
Awesome. That's perfect. Great stuff. Please, Diana, tell them where they can find you after the show, please.
Oh, yeah. Huge LinkedIn person. If you want to find me, I'm on Diana. You can find me on LinkedIn at Diana Fryc, Fryc. And my company is called Retail Voodoo. The URL is retail-voodoo.com. And if you want to listen to my podcast of my own, women leaders in the naturals, food, beverage, and wellness categories, you can find them on the Gooder podcast, which you'll find on pretty much every platform.
Great stuff. Awesome stuff. This has been great. I'm so glad to have you on here. Very honored. This topic shouldn't be. I have so much about this. I feel like I'm just like a women advocate, because I just the lack of visibility.
Yep.
And the lack of trust in putting women in leadership roles is just enough already. So I'm so glad you're here. And to speak about this. It needs to be talked about more. So
thank you.
And not just among women, among men.
Yeah.
As well. Yeah. So.
Yeah, I get it. I appreciate the advocacy. I appreciate the perspective. And I think the more that we can help each other out, the better. I know it seems Pollyanna-ish, but there's no reason why we can't all work for something better. Yeah. And so I really appreciate that you are doing the work that you're doing. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. And to wrap this up, as I always say, people, remember, build it, share it, and they will come. We'll see you next time.
That's truth. Bye.
And that's a wrap for this episode of The Authority Project. Thanks so much for tuning in. And if you like what you heard, we want to hear from you. Subscribe, rate, and give an honest review. Share and tell your friends so they can hear too. And for even more authority-building tactics, be sure to sign up at theauthorityletter.com. Get free weekly content and ongoing digital product giveaways to help you on your entrepreneurial journey. We certainly hope you got a key takeaway or maybe an aha moment from today's broadcast. Just remember, it's your authority. Build it, share it, and they will come. Until next time.